Trains, planes, and automobiles. Well, 2 out of 3 ain't bad, and we'll tell you why this week on Motoring 2004.
TSN's Motoring 2004 is brought to you by Quaker State Motor Oil. Oils fine-tuned for different engines. And Midas, Total Car Care. We do that.
This week we're at the busiest airport in this country, Pearson International in Toronto. Now it could be said that airports are strictly for planes and not vehicles, and you'd be partly correct. I mean, it's the planes that dominate the scene, it's the planes that carry the passengers. But as we're about to see, the busiest spot in any airport may not be in the air, but rather here on the ground.
Here at the airport, there's 2 basic areas that we need to know about. There's a maneuvering area, which is your runways and taxiways, and there's a movement area, and that is the different areas that we're allowed to drive out here in a tractor, in a truck. Airplanes don't have turn signals or backup lights, obviously, so we always have to make sure that we're aware of the situation and where we're driving. We are in the inner corridor, or the main corridor, and the speed limit in here again is 40 kilometers an hour. If for any reason I was to go outside of this vehicle corridor, I would be looking at 25 kilometers an hour. If I was to go into an area where there was a heavy workload going on, or in an area of the aircraft, my speed limit drops to 10 kilometers an hour. During our peak hours, you could have 6 to 8 aircrafts that are pushing back from a gate at one time. At that gate, you could have 2 to 3 vehicles that are setting the pace to get that aircraft off the gate, moving containers, moving dollies, moving baggage carts. You also have buses that are running people between terminals, your GTA security officers, police officers, emergency vehicles that could be responding to an emergency, maintenance vehicles such as in a snowstorm, your snow removal. I mean, it's endless, the amount of vehicles that are out here. As you've been shooting me and I've been driving around the ramp here, I think that you've seen my head is on a swivel. This isn't like a casual drive or a Sunday drive in the country. These drivers every 3 years have to go through an AVOP session, which is an airside vehicle operator's permit. When you're initially hired by the airlines, you write a test that pertains to all the rules and regulations that are out here on the ramp, plus you have to do a map of structures and locations that are located out here. We want to make sure that our drivers know at all times where their bearings are, where north, south, east, and west are, because that's how our runways run, on compass headings. What I have behind me here is a consolidated fuel truck, and he's parked in a safe area. The white line that's on the ground here is called an apron safety line. And that apron safety line tells us that we can leave vehicles or equipment unattended in that area, and it won't come into hazard of docking of an aircraft, okay? The red line that's on the outside of the white line is an equipment restraint line. If we were to leave some of our equipment or an unparked vehicle in that red area, it could come into a possible hindering with the docking of an aircraft. The aircrafts have their own roadway. Anytime we see a yellow line on the ramp or on the gate, such as our lead-in line, that's the aircraft's roadway. That provides guidance to the aircraft or to the pilots to either come onto a gate or actually get out to the taxiways and runways.
From the cockpit, we've got good visibility, but both of us are always looking out on the outside of the aircraft, making sure that the ground traffic is supposed to be where they're supposed to be. I know it sounds a little bit doublespeak, but at the same time, they know what they're doing as well too, but you always have to anticipate the unexpected.
The aircraft are number one. They get the right of way no matter where they're going. That's you have to be alert for them at all time. We do not pass aircraft at any point unless they are sitting on a gate, and a marshaller who is responsible for bringing that aircraft in or out of the gate lets you go, and they will wave you by. That's the only time that you're allowed to cross in front of an aircraft. What we want here is these roadways and these rules are designed for on-time performance of our aircraft. That's the most important thing. Making sure that we get our aircrafts out on time, keeping the ways clear for our aircraft so that they stay on time for the safety of the employees and for the satisfaction of our passengers.
Is it good to get back up in the air?
Oh yes, all the time. Happiness is when you get away from the gate.
Some car marketing schemes seem to come from outer space. More later on Kenzie's Corner. Over the years, you know, the Subaru Legacy has been offered in a number of different guises. This all-new 2005 version, well, it's no different because it's offered in two primary flavors. You can start with this vehicle, which is best described as being the medium, or you can get stuck into the spicy, as you're about to see. The Legacy's two different flavours are offered in sedan and wagon derivatives as well as the jacked up Outback models. As for those flavours, the medium puts 168 horsepower and 166 pounds-feet of torque under the hood. Generally, the performance lives up to expectation and will satisfy most. However, its performance pales in comparison to the GT. With 250 stallions and 250 pounds-feet of torque at just 3,600 RPM, it is rewarding to say the least. A large turbocharger blows 13.5 psi through an equally large air-to-air intercooler such that turbo lag is all but non-existent. Once the TAC climbs past 1,500 or so RPM, the GT never looks back as it warps its way to a metric ton in less than 6 seconds, which is very quick for a wagon. However, where the GT really begins to shine is in the mid-range. Tromp the gas at 60 kilometers an hour and highly illegal speeds appear on the clock in very short order. You know, at one time, Subaru interior design was as strange as its exterior style. Basically unusual materials cobbled together in an equally unusual manner. Not so for the new Legacy. Primarily, great set of gauges that swing back and forth whenever you turn the ignition on. The center stack is not only logically laid out, all of the controls are large enough to be operated with a gloved hand. The steering wheel's got a great feel in your hand, the materials are of top-notch quality, and the seats, well, they're both comfortable and they provide support in all the right areas. The bottom line, this is a very different Subaru indeed. Both the medium and spicy engines can be hooked up to a manual or automatic transmission. While the do-it-yourselfer does make slightly better use of the available power, it's the automatic that is the transmission of choice. Along with a nicely defined gate, it earns a manumatic mode. Now this allows you to take advantage of engine braking and eliminates unwanted shifts mid-corner. It also brings the better of Subaru's two all-wheel drive systems. You know, the reason I'm such a fan of the all-wheel drive system that's hooked up to the automatic transmission is a simple fact. It's proactive. Unlike many other systems which wait for the front wheels to spin before they send any power rearward, this one monitors the gas pedal. You mat the gas, it recognizes you're going for full throttle acceleration, it automatically locks the center differential, splits the power, which eliminates the wheel spin. On this car it works very well. On the extra spicy 250 horsepower GT, quite simply it's a godsend. A 4-channel, 4-sensor anti-lock system that works hand-in-hand with the all-wheel drive system rounds out a thoroughly dynamic and enjoyable driving package. That the stops are short and the system stays out until absolutely needed is an added bonus. You know, the back end of this Legacy wagon has been very well thought through. To begin with, a simple thing, a handle on the tailgate. Thank you very much indeed. You also get, when you fold the seats down, a ton of space, and it's down to two things. The wheel well intrusions have been kept to a minimum. The other thing I like, you do not have to remove the headrests in order to fold the seats flat. You also get this handy plastic mat that keeps the carpet clean over the years. But the other problem they thought through very cleverly. What do you do with the privacy cover on many other wagons? Well, the answer is simple. It either lies on the floor where it's prone to damage or it gets left in the garage. In this particular instance, well, this Legacy wagon has got a proper storage spot underneath the floor.
It's a small thing, but you know what? Small things make a big difference. The Legacy also earns a new platform. Bending and torsional rigidity are up 14% and 5% respectively, while the areas that the suspension is attached to the body are up 30% up front and an incredible 200% in the rear. Through the pylons, the wagon bobbed and weaved with very little body roll or understeer. The nice part is that the body control does not sacrifice ride comfort. It remains compliant, taking the sting out of the largest of bumps. You know, the latest Legacy really is the very best to date. It's modern, mainstream, comfortable, it handles well, and it's got that great all-wheel drive system. When it comes to the two flavors, the base medium car and its 168 horsepower, it'll do most people most of the time. However, if you really do like a little spice in your life, you cannot overlook the GT. With 250 horsepower under the hood, it really does run like the wind.
Our Midas tip of the week concerns ride height. Depending on the vehicle that you own, you could have coil springs, leaf springs, torsion bars, or air cylinders or airbags suspending that vehicle. And it's those springs that establish the ride height of the vehicle in most cases. Now there's a few notable exceptions. In some cases, a shock absorber can somewhat affect ride height, but in most cases it won't. The notable exceptions are those vehicles with air shocks or spring-assisted shocks. For example, GM Venture or Montana minivans have a factory option of air-assisted rear shock absorbers. They've got an airbag incorporated with the rear shock, and it helps to retrim or re-level the ride height when you add excessive cargo or passengers to those vehicles. They can actually pump some air into the rear shocks and bring them back to level. But if you see your vehicle sitting off level, either left to right or forward to aft, you've usually got a broken or damaged spring, or in the case of a torsion bar, maybe it's out of adjustment. In any case, the ride height must be established before you do a wheel alignment, or if you've got any handling difficulties on the vehicle. Now, some guys like to lower their ride height. The sports car guys like to lower ride height, but I'd only advise that you do that if you want to compete with the car in slalom or solo events or race the car. A street-driven car with a lowered suspension is a pain in the neck because you can't clear speed bumps, and you've got problems every time you go up a grade or a steep angle. It bottoms out and you'll damage other components in your car. Now, the truck guys like to raise their ride height, A, because it looks cool, but mainly to clear obstacles when they're off-roading. Stock ride height works the best though for a street-driven vehicle. Make sure you check the ride height before you do a wheel alignment, or if you've got extreme tire wear problems on your vehicle. That's your Midas tip of the week.
This is a Douglas Kalmar tractor made by a British firm. Most of the works in it, though, I believe, are German. And instead of hooking up to the airplane with a tow bar, steel tow bar, this straddles the nose wheel and raises it about a foot. It'll lift 12 or 13 tons, I guess most of the weight of the aircraft, which would be, this one, 767, would be about 300,000 pounds or more, would still be on the main gear. And we're getting a larger one, close to $1 million Canadian, and it'll lift 747 and the big new Airbus 340, the stretch version. We have always in the past had a brakeman as an emergency fellow in the cockpit, and if something breaks, then he can hit the brakes on the aircraft. But with this tractor now, they have eliminated the maintenance mechanic in the cockpit, and they feel it's safe enough as it is. Top speed is just shy of 40 kilometers an hour, including if you have the aircraft.
The car is a 53 Oldsmobile Holiday 98. It was basically in stock form. The drivetrain was already done. I've customized the body to the way I think a car should have come from the factory, but everybody's got their own opinion. I'm a customizer, and a customizer, a lot of people these days don't know really what a customizer is. Well, a customizer is a form of a stylist that takes a look, has got to look at a car and got a vision in his mind, say, I could make that car into something other than what it is. Whether it's bodywork, headlights, taillights, yes, the car isn't chopped, but the way I look at it, not unless the car needs to be radically changed. You can still add nice touches to it without carving away the top and making it look out of line. The grille is out of a 53 Chevy, but anybody that remembers a 53 Chevy only had 3 teeth. This has got 13 teeth in it. Loaded up with chrome bullets in the front end, kind of make it look kind of carnivorous looking when I like a toothy front end of a car. 350 Olds out of a 442, 60 thou over, turbo 400. On a Camaro clip nicely, it slides right into the Oldsmobile frame, which gives you the disc brakes, the front steer. It handles like a dream. But I didn't build this car for show underneath the hood. It's for go and a good driver. Getting into the aerials here and the framework around it, that's 3/8 rod. That's different sections of rod put together, then marglassed over and then Bondo. And then I think it gives the car a nice effect of body sculpturing into the steel rather than something that you'd bolt on or whatever. When I go out cruising, I like to have the windows down, the wind in my hair, and hearing my 50s tunes and just having a ball, So I'm not the star here. The car is a star. I'm just the guy in the back here that propped it up.
Now, we're all familiar with a pogo stick. In fact, I used to own one as a child. But here at Pearson International, they have the mother of all pogo sticks. But this one isn't for fun, it's strictly for safety. The pogo stick holds up the tail of a 747 jumbo jet. Why? Well, you see, they have a lot of cargo in the back. And as the passengers depart, it gets tail heavy. And without the pogo stick, it could literally fall back on its tail. And it has happened, but never here at Pearson International. All right, it's now time to head to the Quaker State Garage and join a man I know would love to be here with us, and that, of course, is Bill Gardner.
Absolutely, Brad. I was out in Western Canada there a while ago at some of the airports, and you still walk on the tarmac out there in some cases, and it's just awesome to see the size of some of those planes, And you think about the takeoff weight of some of those big aircraft, like a 747, for example, approaching 400 tons. Imagine the power it takes to get 400 tons off the ground. Just amazing. Anyhow, we've got an email from one of our viewers this week. He's got a Plymouth Neon. He did a spark plug swap, changing his worn spark plugs for Platinum Plus 4 spark plugs. And his question is, how many kilometers do you think I can get on the plugs I just put in before I need to replace them again, and what is the difference between a platinum spark plug as opposed to a regular plug? Great question. Now, many of today's cars come factory equipped with platinum spark plugs, mainly because they last so long. They're so durable, and the intended lifespan of those spark plugs is 160,000 K, and that's likely what our viewer has installed as well. Now, sometimes there's extenuating circumstances that require them to be changed at a lower interval than the 160 K they were intended to do. Sometimes they get fouled or damaged, and this can require them to be replaced. But many cars last 160,000 K. They're still running well. You go to your owner's manual, see that interval, and you change them. Now, they're much more expensive. A typical platinum tip spark plug is $7 to $8 minimum, and they can be as much as $16 or $18 each, as compared to about $3 or $4 for a conventional spark plug. Now, the difference being that at the firing tip, at the electrode tip, you've got platinum there, which doesn't tend to erode or wear away every time the spark jumps the gap. With a conventional spark plug, that gap wears rather quickly. As the spark jumps there, it erodes or wears it out a little bit. Now, one other key difference to platinum spark plugs is the shell of the spark plug is nickel plated or chrome plated, so it doesn't corrode. And when a spark plug's in the engine for an extended period of time, and most drivers take quite a few years to accumulate 160,000 K. If that spark plug is not well plated or protected, it can seize in the engine. You may not get it out. It could be completely seized, or it may strip coming out or break. These are common problems when spark plugs are left in an engine for too long. With a platinum tip spark plug, you get a better casing to it, and it won't corrode and stick in there. That's a very important feature. Till next week, I'm Bill Gardner for Motoring 2004.
When Saturn first came on the automotive market about 15 years ago, one of the things they introduced was no haggle pricing. Here's the car, here's the price, give us your money, drive on home. And that became the flavor of the month for a while. Every car company seemed to want to try this system. Even Toyota, you figure it would make a certain amount of sense for Toyota customers. They tend to be logical, analytical people who wouldn't want to get involved in the emotion of haggling over the price of a new car. Besides, a couple $100 on a $30,000 deal, it's hardly worth the effort. But you know, Toyota has decided to cancel this program. It seems even Toyota customers love to haggle. You know, we men particularly are funny. You can insult us any way you like. Say you're ugly, you're fat, you're a lousy lover. But try to tell a man that someone else got a better deal on his new car, those are fighting words. In fact, the entire franchise dealer network's been called into question many times over its 100-odd-year history. This system works not by the car company owning the outlet, but by an individual person who's got his own money tied up in the deal. That seems to be the best way of ensuring that the cars keep flowing off of the lot. They've tried the internet. Remember, everybody was going to buy cars on the internet? Hasn't happened. People research on the internet, but they come here to buy their cars. Porsche tried to change their system about 20 years ago. The dealers almost sued their butts off. So it looks like there's a lot of life left in the franchise dealer network. To paraphrase what Winston Churchill once said about democracy, the dealer franchise network may be the worst possible way to sell new cars, except for all the others. I'm Jim Kenzie.
Unfortunately, we gotta go, but before we do, I want to thank the GTA and Air Canada for allowing us to go airside here at Pearson International. For someone like myself who grew up as an Air Force brat, this is a chance of a lifetime. And you know, it's also good to know that here at Pearson and airports across the country, that the safety is the #1 priority, both in the air and here on the ground. That's it for now. We'll see you next time out as we continue to bring you more stories about cars and the people who drive them.
It's a big vehicle. I mean, and that's one of the things when we talk to people about what they wanted in a full-size SUV, that was the word. They wanted full size. They want to be able to take lots of people, lots of gear, lots of things with them.
TSN's Motoring 2004 has been brought to you by Quaker State Motor Oil, oils fine-tuned for different engines, and Midas, Total Car Care. We do that.